Welcome into OutKick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Tuesdays, wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. We are, right now, 2 days away from the official start of the NFL Draft, and I have got an incredible offer for you, particularly if you're in Tennessee, Michigan, many other of the new states out there that now have gambling. You can bet $5 on Trevor Lawrence to be the overall number one pick, which is 100% guaranteed. And if you do, you get back $100 if you are a new user. Go find a brother, go find a sister, go find a grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, somebody who hasn't signed up. If you have already signed up, and tell them you got $100 free for them. All they have to do is go to fanduel.com/Clay. That is fanduel.com/Clay. And a $5 wager turns into $100. That's a 20-1 payout if Trevor Lawrence goes number one overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which he is going to do. So make sure you get your bets in now. fanduel.com/Clay. That is fanduel.com/Clay. All right. I am so sick and tired of ESPN deciding to divide us instead of bring us together. I'm not surprised at this point that that's what they do to sports fans, that they have adopted the woke identity politics culture that is far too commonplace on social media and doesn't reflect the way that actual sports fans feel. But ESPN had an article up, and this is what it said. When it comes to black quarterbacks in particular, the NFL has long gone out of its way to keep the position as white as the painted yard lines on the field, arguing that Justin Fields is being discriminated against because he is black even before the actual draft occurs. It's just not true. And I think we have reached the point in time where what needs to happen for stories like these and for people who write them is they need to be ridiculed to the high heavens and called out for what they are, race baiters extraordinaire, who are trying to use sports to divide us based on identity politics lines. Here's what's great about the NFL. Best man plays, best man gets paid. It is a meritocracy. That is what America should be. Most talent gets most money. That is what defines capitalism. And right now, the four highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL are all black. In the history of the NFL, we have got a ton of different black quarterbacks out there starting. The NFL only cares about one color, green. And all NFL coaches and players care about is winning. If there were, and I've been making this argument for several years, but I think a lot of people are not smart enough to understand it. If there were a market inefficiency in the NFL because of racism, that is, if people were deciding to be racist against black quarterbacks, then you could exploit that market inefficiency in a highly competitive industry by drafting black quarterbacks yourself and taking advantage of the racism inherent in other teams' decisions, leading your team to win more often. I think we've already seen one coach do this with a different position. Bill Belichick went and started bringing in white wide receivers because he saw that they were undervalued on the marketplace, maybe because of their race. Julian Edelman, you basically can, Wes Welker, make a list of white wide receivers, and Bill Belichick went out and signed them and brought them in and was able to profit greatly off of their labor because they were undervalued in the larger marketplace. And then what happened? Other teams started to copy Bill Belichick and go get their own white wide receiver to try to take advantage of the opportunity that he had unlocked in the marketplace. This may have been true and likely was in the 1960s and the 1970s. But by the 1990s and the 2000s and the 2010s, and now we're into the 2020s, this is an old, completely invalid argument that is designed to divide sports fans with no legitimacy backing it up. Think about it. Mike Vick, Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray, if you had any doubt at all about the power. These are all guys who have gone number 1 overall. Jamarcus Russell, I just listed 5 different black quarterbacks that have been drafted number 1 overall in the 21st century. And just to bring into mind here, Jameis Winston was drafted number 1 overall, despite the fact that he had been credibly accused of rape while he was at Florida State and was arrested for stealing crab legs, calling into question much of his judgment, yet he still went number 1 overall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If anybody was going to be discriminated against, it would have been Jameis Winston because of his off-the-field related issues, yet his talent was significant enough that NFL teams were willing to take him number 1 overall. Tom Brady, the most successful quarterback of all time, fell all the way to the 6th round. 2 black quarterbacks were drafted over him, Spurgeon Wynn and T. Martin. That wasn't because of racism. It's because figuring out who is and who is not a good quarterback is a very difficult thing to do, even for people who have spent their entire lives studying football. If Justin Fields was projected by any of the teams that have the draft pick to be an incredible, transcendent talent who would take their team to multiple Super Bowls, he would be drafted at a high level. He still probably will be drafted at a high level. But before the draft even starts, to call his fall racism just completely fails to look at the larger NFL landscape. Aaron Rodgers waited until 24 to be drafted. That wasn't because NFL teams were racist against him. It's because he played in a Jeff Tedford offense, and there were questions about whether or not he made sense going forward. America should look more like the NFL. The NFL should not look more like America, and false racism claims designed to divide us using sports as the cudgel of that division should be called out by anyone with a conscience and anyone with a functional brain and anyone with a soul desiring equality across all sports. That would be your boy here, by the way. Let me go ahead and give you my top 10. I am drafting a new top 10 every morning on OutKick, and I already questioned the top 10 that I did this morning because a lot of things have continued to move. But my OutKick top 10 for Tuesday afternoon as we get ready for the Wednesday morning edition of the show, Trevor Lawrence is going number 1 overall. Zach Wilson is going number 2. I think Mac Jones is going to be the selection for the San Francisco 49ers at 3. I think Atlanta is going to stick at 4 and draft Kyle Pitts. At 5, I've now become convinced that Jamar Chase is that he is going to end up the pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, and that they have made the decision to pass on Penei Sewell. And if that is going to occur, I think someone is going to trade up, potentially the Denver Broncos, and take Trey Lance at number 6 overall. Maybe Miami trades back and takes the number 9 spot of the Denver Broncos. In the 7 spot, I've got Micah Parsons going to the Detroit Lions. At 8, I think the Panthers go get Justin Fields. At 9, which will be the Dolphins pick, I think they go get Jalen Waddle. And at number 10, I have Patrick Surtain going to the Dallas Cowboys. That was this morning's list. I am going to give you a revised list tomorrow morning. Already, a lot has changed since then, but I have not yet made my changes. We're going to be talking a lot about this, by the way, on Fox Bet Live here momentarily. And as we continue to roll through, we got a lot of people who want to be advertising with OutKick. You can reach out to us and do the same if you would like to as well. But I want to give a shout out to Regal Realty. If you're in Tennessee or looking to move to the state of Tennessee, which a lot of people are, the census data just came out, then I've got the guy and the team for you. Hunter Briley and Regal Realty help individuals buy or build their next residential or investment property. Contact Hunter Briley and the Regal Realty Group. His phone number, 615-630-9735. Get hooked up if you are considering moving to Tennessee, which I did tell you, I looked at the census data, and a lot of people are moving here. You need to get Hunter Riley and get hooked up with him. 615-630-9735. 888-866-9835. All right, good news in the continued COVID battles. First of all, the CDC finally came out and said that if you're outdoors and you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. I got to tell you something. If you have been not going outdoors, or you have been going outdoors wearing masks and you've been waiting for the CDC to give you the okay to take your masks off, you are such a sheep. You disgust me. You are pathetic, all right? If you are driving around in your car by yourself wearing a mask, you are a total loser. If you are sitting in the basement of your house after a year of this pandemic, still terrified of COVID, and you are under the age of 50, you basically have the almost same likelihood of getting murdered. Think about this. If you had a friend and that friend said to you, I haven't been outside or been to a restaurant really in a year, haven't been to the gym, haven't gone to the movie theater, haven't been to a sporting event, and you said, why not? And they said, because I'm afraid of being murdered. You'd be like, dude, you've got major psychological issues, okay? Major psychological issues. Because the odds of you being murdered are really, really low. You know what the odds are of you dying of COVID if you are under the age of 50? 1 in 50,000. Putting that into context, that means if a stadium which seats 50,000 people were 100% full of people with COVID, everybody in the stadium had it, one of those people, if they were under the age of 50, would die. That's insane. You are far more likely to die driving to and from football games than you are from sitting in a crowd watching a football game. This is all madness. But positive news, my home state of Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee came out and said he was stripping the authority, basically, of the 6 major metropolitan area mayors to continue to implement COVID restrictions in their cities. And so by Memorial Day, everything in the state of Tennessee will be 100% open. Every business, every activity, and even in the city of Nashville with our idiot mayor, they have announced by May 14th, everything is back to being 100% open. So less than a month from now, everything will be full go in my hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, and my home state is already basically 100% open. I was at the orange and white game this weekend up in Knoxville. All the bars were open. There were no masks in sight. If you want to go get vaccinated, you can go get vaccinated. Every adult over the age of 16 or 18 is eligible. If you are in a susceptible population, you're elderly, you're fat, you are dealing with many different health conditions, you should go get vaccinated. If you are young and healthy, you should have been living your normal life for a long time. I've said it, I've lived my normal life for a year now. Basically since May, when I took my family down to Florida for the month of May, I've been doing everything completely normal, and I would encourage you guys to do the same. Joe Rogan, by the way, is under fire for saying that healthy 21-year-olds don't need to go get the vaccine. I think it's important to share actual data. And I think it's important to trust people to make rational decisions for themselves. And a lot of people in public health don't believe that. They think if you share facts with people, you're encouraging them not to do things. I disagree. I don't tell you what you should or should not do definitively, right? I think what you do is you give the data, like I just did. If you're elderly, you're under substantially more risk of COVID. I think that the mere data would suggest it's a good decision for you to get a vaccine. If you're under the age of 50, you have almost no risk. So you need to figure out what makes sense in your life and make a good decision for yourself. The data reflects that 1 in 50,000 people who get it, who are under the age of 50, will actually die. That's a tiny percentage. You're almost more likely to be murdered. More people under the age of 50 committed suicide than have died of COVID. You're under more danger driving to and from work definitively than you are from COVID. Risk analysis is what adults should do. It's how we distinguish adults from children. And it's why I'm so fired up that we haven't had schools open everywhere ever since April of last year. And at minimum, we should have been open since June when all the doctors, remember, trust the experts, trust the science, when all the doctors came out in June and said schools need to be back open, and then everybody was terrified to actually do it. I want to give a shout out to the new LSU women's basketball coach, Kim Mulkey. I don't know if you saw the video of her accepting the new LSU job, but Kim Mulkey previously said at Baylor, where she won a couple of national championships, that she thought we needed to stop testing all the young kids who were playing in the NCAA tournament because COVID wasn't a danger to them, and it made absolutely no sense to test them. I agree with you, Kim. And I love this. In her opening statement, before she even said a word, she strode up to the microphone and went to the rostrum, and she ripped off her mask, and she said, "I'm going to take this damn mask off." And the crowd went crazy. That was the first line she ever said as an LSU women's basketball coach. I got to tell you, that is one of the most iconic first lines that I have ever heard any coach deliver. I saw it, and I was like, God bless her. I absolutely loved it. The Blue Checks were furious. They're angry at everybody all day long. You ever notice that? The Blue Checks, like, they're always trying to cancel people. They're always so mad. They're mad at Joe Rogan. They're mad at Kim Mulkey. They're mad at Tucker Carlson. How dare you have an opinion that differs from the Blue Check Brigade? But I loved Baylor women's coach Kim Mulkey for dropping that line. Got to tell you, this is maybe the funniest ad we've ever had. All right, and I read it yesterday and I was like, this is amazing. But let's just roll through here. All right, ED affects over half of all men. Doesn't have to make you feel, however, like half of a man. Since 2017, my Dr. Hank has been making America hard again. Greatest tagline ever? I think it might be. My Dr. Hank helps you get low-cost ED meds and overcome the psychological and emotional barriers to getting ED treatment. They secure your prescription and then ship it to you discreetly every month from U.S. pharmacies, all for as low as $2 a pill. So don't wait. Join the movement to make America hard again. Go to mydrhank.com/Clay and sign up. Tell Dr. Hank Clay sent you. That's me. And they will give you 50% off your first subscription order. That's mydrhank.com/Clay. Offer available for a limited time. mydrhank.com/Clay. Make America hard again. All right. This is interesting too. I don't know if you saw this. Census is out. They officially had the census data finally released. And I was kind of curious to see which states would grow the most and which states would grow the least. And it's probably not going to surprise you which states grew the most and which states did not grow the most. And let me see if I can actually find the census data. And here it is. You can go read a lot of these articles, by the way, that I'm referencing at OutKick.com, where we do a fantastic job of breaking all this down. The U.S. Census Bureau announced we now have a population of about 331 million. Fastest growing states. Utah, fastest growing state in the United States, followed by Idaho, Texas, North Dakota, Nevada, Colorado, Florida, Washington State, Washington, D.C., Arizona, South Carolina, Georgia, Oregon, Delaware, Montana, North Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Virginia, and Minnesota. That's the top 20 fastest growing states. The states that grew the least and/or lost population: Pennsylvania, 2.4%, Wyoming, 2.3%, Ohio, 2.3%, Michigan, 2%, Connecticut, less than 1%, Illinois, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Puerto Rico, which obviously is not a state but a commonwealth. Illinois, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Puerto Rico all lost population. So I thought that was interesting. If you look at the number of states and the shifting of congressional seats, it appears Republicans picked up about 6 seats, 6 electoral votes, just based on the reshifting of the overall congressional seats, and that in 2022, Republicans are going to take back the House and Nancy Pelosi is going to lose her speakership. I think that is very, very likely. I don't know if you saw this story, but I think it's a significant one. Stacey Abrams, who lost her gubernatorial bid in Georgia by over 50,000 votes. That's more votes than Donald Trump lost the presidency by. Trump lost the presidency by around 42,000 votes total. Stacey Abrams lost the Georgia presidency, a Georgia gubernatorialship, by around 50,000 votes. She refused to concede, said it was racist, said the election was unfair, and she somehow become a Democratic heavyweight, one of the favored faces of the Democratic Party. She ended up helping to cost the Atlanta Braves the All-Star game. She wrote a piece, an editorial piece, an op-ed for USA Today calling for a boycott of the state of Georgia and specifically referencing Major League Baseball in that editorial. Well, after the All-Star game was pulled out of Atlanta, this is wild, they rewrote, USA Today did, the editorial from Stacey Abrams to make it look like she had not requested a boycott and that she did not want for the All-Star game to be played in Atlanta. They didn't make any notation that they had rewritten the editorial. And they also, the media did, started to cite that editorial as evidence that Stacey Abrams had never called for a boycott of Georgia area businesses. This is a transparent and bald-faced and blatant lie that Stacey Abrams and USA Today were caught in. USA Today said, we forgot to note that we were providing editorial changes, but why should you be able to change the wording of what you wrote later on? I never go back, for better or worse, and change the written comments in my articles that are years old. I could go back and make myself look like a genius if I went and changed my gambling picks, for instance, or my predictions about who were going to be the national champions every year. But that's phony, and it's transparently a lie. And that's exactly what Stacey Abrams and USA Today were just caught doing. This should be a major story. Can you imagine if someone in the Trump administration had been caught going back in to change an editorial that had already been written for a week to make it look like they hadn't said what they actually said, and there was no notation made? This is Orwellian, changing the meanings of words, changing what you wrote, claiming that there was never any difference. This is a disgrace, and Stacey Abrams should be ashamed of herself, and USA Today should be even more ashamed of itself because they're supposed to be the gatekeepers for truth and honesty. Props to Christian Pulisic, who just became the first American to score in a Champions League game ever. Great goal for Chelsea. Yes, I am a big Pulisic fan because I would like for our American soccer team to one day be able to actually compete to challenge for major advancement in the World Cup. Next year, the American men, in theory, will be back in the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. And Christian Pulisic may already be the greatest talent that we have ever produced in America. If we can keep him healthy, he's clearly going to become, I think, the greatest player of all time, and there may not be a close second. Finally, I love owning a sports media company right now because if you can deliver for all these sports gambling companies, there are a lot of people competing to try to be affiliated with you. And Dan Lebatard's podcast just got $50 million over 3 years from DraftKings. So, look, I always root for a rising tide to lift all boats. If Lebatard's podcast is worth $50 million, I'm feeling really good about where my radio show and podcast are as well. We will continue to roll. FanDuel is our partner right now, but who knows who our partner will be in the months ahead because our deal is up soon. But in the meantime, you can go get signed up right now. $5 bet turns into $100 at FanDuel.com/Clay. That is $5 turning into $100. 20-1 payout at FanDuel.com/Clay. All you have to do is pick Trevor Lawrence to be the overall number 1 pick. Find somebody who hasn't already signed up for FanDuel. Get them to sign up and say, hey, I got $100 free for you. Heck, it can even be your Mother's Day present to mom, $100 extra you're giving her. All she has to do is sign up. Get your dad to sign up if he needs to buy your mom a present. Say, Dad, here's an extra $100. FanDuel.com/Clay. $5 turns into $100. One more time, FanDuel.com/Clay. I am Clay Travis. This is OutKick the Show. I appreciate all of you hanging out with us. In about 30 minutes, I am going to be live on Fox Bet Live, breaking down the latest on the NFL Draft as we move closer and closer to the official start of the NFL Draft. My name is always Clay Travis. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'll be live on the radio talking to you tomorrow morning. I'll be live on television in a half hour. This has been OutKick the Show.